Sunday dinners at our house always had a certain heaviness, like everyone was on their best behavior but keeping score at the same time. Maybe that's every family. Maybe it's just mine. The kitchen smelled like rosemary chicken and garlic bread, and my mom fluttered between the table and the stove, pretending not to hear the sharp digs my brother and I lobbed at each other between bites. We don't have a big family, just the four of us: Dad, Mom, my older brother Ethan, and me. Ethan's the golden child, Dad's clone, Mom's pride, the firstborn who could do no wrong. I was used to being overlooked, but tonight felt different, like I was already out of place before dinner even started. I'd spent the whole week looking forward to this. Not dinner, the announcement. The family cruise. I'd found a great deal online and sent it to our family group chat, pitching the idea for a week at sea together, just the four of us, away from the same tired routine. To my surprise, they actually liked the idea. Or so I thought. So when the food was passed around and everyone seemed normal, I took a chance. I waited until Dad had poured his wine and Mom was finally sitting down. I smiled, trying to sound casual. I'm really excited for our family cruise next month. I've already started making a packing list. The room went quiet. Not the nice kind of quiet. It was as if a draft had blown through, chilling the table. Ethan snorted, not even looking at me. He kept his eyes on his phone, tapping away, and said, "Oh, you thought you were coming?" My fork clattered onto my plate. I looked up, half expecting him to grin, waiting for the punchline. He didn't. Mom's lips pressed into a thin line, but she said nothing. I glanced at Dad, hoping for backup, but he just looked at Ethan, then at me, like this was none of his concern. My cheeks burned. "What do you mean?" I tried to laugh, make it a joke, anything to fill the silence, but the words landed flat. Ethan shrugged. "It's more of a family thing. You know, just us." His words twisted in my chest. I tried to read Mom's face, but she wouldn't meet my eyes. Dad cleared his throat, suddenly interested in his food. The feeling of being an outsider was sharp, physical, like I was shrinking inside my own skin. I looked at my plate and forced myself to keep eating, hands shaking just enough that I hoped no one noticed. I wanted to say something, demand an explanation, make them acknowledge me, but the words died in my throat. The urge to keep the peace, to not look desperate or pathetic, kept me silent. I stared at my food and chewed, my appetite gone. All the while, Ethan grinned into his phone, smug in a way only an older sibling can be when he knows the power is his. The rest of dinner passed in a blur. I heard my parents talking about logistics, passport renewals, excursions, what time to leave for the airport, without ever saying my name. I nodded along, pretending I was still part of the conversation, even as I realized, for the first time, I might not be. Dinner dragged on. Every second waited with what wasn't being said. My heart hammered in my chest, but I held my face perfectly still. I could feel Ethan watching me, hoping I'd crack, say something stupid, embarrass myself. I didn't give him the satisfaction. I just kept pushing the chicken around my plate, letting the voices at the table drift over me. Ethan finished first, tossing his napkin down with a self-satisfied smirk. "I'll be in my room. Let me know if you need my passport info, Dad." Mom tried to smooth things over, her voice light. "Don't forget to finish your homework, Ethan." But she didn't look at me, and the air was so tense I thought I might choke on it. I waited until Dad stood up to refill his glass. He walked past me, pausing just long enough to make me think he might say something kind, something fatherly. Instead, he leaned in just close enough for only me to hear and said, almost offhand, "It's for real family, you know. We just want it to be easy this year." The words hit harder than I expected. Real family. As if I was an imposter at my own dinner table. I sat perfectly still, eyes burning, refusing to let the tears fall. Mom pretended to clear crumbs, making herself busy with dishes. Ethan's door slammed upstairs. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw my glass against the wall and force them to look at me, to admit what they were doing. But I knew if I broke down, it would just be proof that I didn't belong, that I was too dramatic, too needy, too much. So I swallowed it all. The humiliation, the anger, the bone-deep ache of being unwanted. I gathered plates and took them to the sink, my back to them so they couldn't see my face. Mom started talking, finally, filling the silence with small talk. "We should check if the passports are up to date. I'll call the cruise line in the morning. Oh, and Ethan, remember, no bringing your video games." She was talking to thin air, to the empty hallway. Dad just grunted and flicked on the TV, as if nothing had happened. My mind spun with questions I didn't dare ask. Was this about money? Did I do something wrong? Was I just an inconvenience? The extra body no one wanted around? Or had they always felt this way, and I'd just been too naive to notice? I washed the dishes, my hands trembling. I could hear Dad laughing at something on the news. Mom hummed tunelessly as she wiped down the counters. The normalcy felt like a slap. I finished my chores and slipped out of the kitchen. In the hallway, I paused, listening to their voices drifting in from the other room, talking about the trip. I realized I was standing on the other side of a closed door, a door that would never fully open for me again. When the last light in the hallway blinked off, I sat alone in my room, replaying every moment from dinner. The silence pressed in, thick and unwelcoming. I tried to make sense of it all, sifting through memories for signs I'd missed, clues that this was always coming. The truth was, I'd always been on the edge of this family. Tonight, they just said it out loud. Lying on my bed, I scrolled through our family group chat, hoping to see my name. Something, anything to contradict the icy exclusion from earlier. All I found were messages about cruise details, links to excursions, notes about cabins, jokes about seasickness. Nobody addressed me directly, as if I was a ghost haunting their plans. For hours, I lay there, cycling between anger and disbelief. Why did Ethan get to decide who counted as real family? Why did Dad agree? Why did Mom, always so gentle, just let it happen? I thought of all the times I'd watched Ethan get his way, sports teams, school choices, even what movies we watched on Friday nights. It was always easier to let him win, and tonight was no different. The worst part wasn't that they didn't want me there. It was that they didn't even bother to hide it. Around midnight, I heard Ethan laughing in his room, gaming with friends. Dad's snores rumbled from down the hall. Mom's low voice on the phone drifted under my door, probably talking to her sister, telling her about the upcoming family trip. My stomach twisted at the word. As I stared at the ceiling, a cold determination settled in. I'd spent years shrinking myself to fit into their idea of a family, swallowing every slight, every joke at my expense. Tonight, something snapped. I wasn't going to beg for a seat at their table anymore. If they wanted to exclude me, fine. But I wouldn't make it easy for them. I got up and opened my laptop. My hands trembled with a mix of nerves and anger as I pulled up the cruise confirmation email, the one I'd originally sent. To my surprise, my name was still on the booking. They hadn't bothered to remove me or even tell the cruise line I wasn't coming. A plan began to form. I could still go. Legally, they couldn't stop me. I imagined the look on Ethan's face if I showed up at the airport, bags packed, calm, and unbothered. I didn't want to humiliate myself, but I didn't want to give them the win, either. Maybe it was petty, but right now, pettiness felt like power. I started making my own packing list. Not the kind you share in the group chat, just the essentials. I wouldn't ask anyone for help. I wouldn't warn them. I'd let them think they'd won, right up until the very last minute. For the first time all night, I smiled. Not a happy smile, but something harder, sharper. If they thought I was weak, they were about to see just how wrong they were. The morning of the cruise felt heavy with anticipation, at least for everyone except me. I woke early, my suitcase half-packed from the night before. I double-checked the documents: passport, boarding pass, credit card. All ready. I even printed out the cruise confirmation, tucked neatly inside my bag. I wasn't just showing up, I was prepared. The family was buzzing with excitement downstairs, the kind that only comes before a big trip. Ethan joked loudly, tossing his backpack onto the couch, while Mom fussed over last-minute details, making sure Dad remembered the chargers and sunscreen. None of them looked my way as I walked past, carrying my small carry-on. I kept my expression neutral, even as a wave of cold dread tried to sweep over me. I'd rehearsed this moment 100 times in my head, but standing there now, watching them act like I wasn't even in the room, felt surreal. At breakfast, Dad gave me a quick nod. Nothing more, and Mom barely glanced up from the cereal box. Ethan smirked, but said nothing. The atmosphere was thick with silent agreement. She's not coming. When we piled into the car to head to the airport, I slid into the back seat quietly. I could feel their eyes on me in the rearview mirror, but I refused to meet their gazes. It was a silent showdown, and I wasn't about to back down. At the airport, the familiar rush of travelers surrounded us, a chaotic hum that seemed to drown out the tension inside our car. I stayed calm, clutching my boarding pass, while the family exchanged hushed conversations about seat assignments and luggage limits. As we approached the terminal entrance, Ethan leaned forward, voice low but sharp. "You're not supposed to be here." I didn't flinch. I am. My ticket's paid for. I'm going. He laughed, a harsh, brittle sound. You think it's that simple? Dad told me you're not coming. I turned to him. I steady. Dad never said anything to the cruise line. I'm on the manifest. Mom gasped, looking between us, but I saw the flicker of doubt cross her face. Dad said nothing, just tightened his grip on the steering wheel. I stepped out of the car, pulling my suitcase behind me, and walked toward the check-in counter. I could hear their footsteps behind me, but I didn't look back. The game was on. The airport check-in area was crowded, the steady buzz of announcements and chatter wrapping around us like a restless tide. I approached the counter with deliberate calm, clutching my documents tightly. Behind me, I heard the barely disguised panic in their voices, Ethan whispering fiercely to Mom, Dad calling someone on his phone with clipped words. Ma'am, can I see your passport and boarding pass? The agent asked, looking up from her screen. I handed them over without hesitation, watching her fingers fly across the keyboard. You're confirmed for this cruise? She asked, eyebrows raised. Yes, I said quietly. First class. The agent smiled briefly, printing my boarding pass and handing it back. Enjoy your trip. Behind me, I could feel the family's tension crackling like static. Ethan strode over, trying to catch the agent's attention, but she politely turned back to me. I caught a glimpse of Mom's face, pale and uncertain, and Dad's jaw clenched tight. They didn't cancel your ticket, Ethan hissed under his breath. You're not supposed to be on that plane. I looked at him with steady eyes, savoring the moment. They didn't say I wasn't. The family scrambled, whispering urgently between themselves. I noticed Dad pulling out his phone again, probably calling the cruise company to demand my removal. But until then, I was officially a passenger. As I wheeled my suitcase away from the counter, I caught the eye of a few other travelers. Some offered sympathetic smiles, others stared, clearly sensing the drama unfolding. I didn't feel victorious yet. Not entirely. But I did feel powerful. For once, I wasn't the powerless sister waiting to be picked or discarded. I was the one in control. The family trailed behind me, their faces flushed with frustration and disbelief. I was on my way. The final boarding call echoed through the terminal, sending a jolt through everyone standing near Gate 17. I glanced up, feeling a calm surge wash over me, like this was exactly where I belonged, no matter what they tried to convince me otherwise. My family clustered near the waiting area, their expressions a mixture of anger, confusion, and defeat. Ethan's jaw was tight, his fist clenched. Mom's eyes flickered nervously between me and the gate staff. Dad stood rigid, arms crossed, unable to say a word. When my name was called, I stepped forward with measured confidence, dragging my suitcase behind me. The gate agent scanned my boarding pass, nodded, and smiled politely. Without hesitation, I walked down the jet bridge and onto the plane. I felt every gaze burning into me as I passed, but I held my head high. This wasn't about them anymore. It was about me reclaiming what I was owed: respect, dignity, a place at the table. Settling into my seat in first class, the plush leather swallowed me in quiet luxury. The flight attendants greeted me with professional smiles, unaware of the storm trailing behind me. I exhaled slowly, savoring the silence and the subtle victory. From my window seat, I caught glimpses of my family standing in the terminal, unable to follow. Their proud, real family facade was crumbling, exposed for what it was, a fragile wall built on exclusion and hurt. I smiled quietly, knowing this trip would never be the same for any of us. The cruise set sail under a clear sky, the sun casting golden light across the deck as families laughed and posed for photos. But beneath the bright surface, the currents of tension ran deep and unyielding. I watched from the sidelines as Ethan avoided me, his glances sharp but empty. Mom kept her distance, polite but guarded. Dad spoke little, his once commanding presence softened by an unspoken apology in his eyes. The unspoken truth hung between us like a dense fog. None of us dared to break it, but it shaped every interaction. I felt a strange mix of liberation and sorrow. The family I'd hoped for was fractured, but in its cracks, I found space to breathe and exist on my own terms. I wasn't just the other sister anymore. I was a force, unbowed and uninvited. Each day, I explored the ship with quiet confidence, choosing my own adventures instead of waiting for invitations. I learned to enjoy moments of solitude in the ocean breeze, the endless horizon reminding me that some boundaries are meant to be broken. At dinner, I sat alone one evening, savoring the irony of the empty chair next to me, the seat they'd hoped would remain unoccupied. I raised my glass silently to the sea, to the family I once knew, and to the one I was becoming. This cruise wasn't about reunion or forgiveness. It was about reclaiming myself, an unshakable truth that no exclusion could erase. And with every wave that rocked the ship, I felt my own resolve grow stronger.